Like it's like a difference of like 6 inches for me.
Ashley,
we're not live. We're just recording.
No, but where are we going live? Like, where are we live streaming?
We have Four Corner LinkedIn, Four Corner Facebook. Did Haley add any other Four Corner stuff?
She didn't get back to me on it.
Okay. So we're going live on Four Corner LinkedIn and Facebook then. Do you want to go on your YouTube too? Your personal?
Kinda. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a little, what do you think? Do you think it's too off topic for
No, I don't think so.
being career advice?
No.
No.
I mean, we'll probably end up talking about career advice anyway.
Yeah. Is it okay before I hit live?
Yeah, I think we're good. As long as I haven't looked at the private chat. I don't have anything in there. I think we had to be in here to see it.
Darn it. Okay, I'll send it while
if it's the same video as last time, I already saw it. I mean, I saw it last week.
No, it's videos that I just sent, like links.
Oh, well, then
let's do it. Let's
live reaction.
Okay. I'll send it again when we're live to see it.
Live Peter reaction is what we're going to get.
Yeah, live reactions is fine.
Okay.
And we're live.
We are live.
We're here. We made it.
Here we are again with episode number 3 of 2024. Or it is 2024. Yes, it is.
Yes.
Of Gen XYZ. This is our third show this year. We're all over it. I'm Pete. I'm the Gen Xer.
I'm Peter. I'm the millennial.
Boo.
You weren't ready for that.
And I'm Ashley. I'm the Gen Zer. And no, I wasn't ready for that because I can't really hear too well from all this construction outside happening in my apartment. So
Ashley, you should probably mute in between talking today because it is loud. But I didn't think we'd hear it. But that's okay. That's part of the fun of going live. As is any opportunity to boo the millennials, so we don't miss that opportunity. So thanks for catching it. But if really, there's only a couple rules of our show, and one is we really need audience participation. So if you're on LinkedIn and you're watching us right now, or you're watching on YouTube, we don't get much traction on YouTube yet, but we typically get a lot of good responses and interaction on LinkedIn, and so that's what makes this show fun and entertaining for anyone. What other rules do we have? Do we have any other rules, you guys?
No.
I don't think so.
I think we need to get a phone line so we can do like the old 90s shows and have like call-ins and we just like answer people's questions. Because viewer participation is key for us. Otherwise,
that would be great. That would be great. So if you're listening right now and you have anything in particular that's on your mind, we carried over from last week. We were talking about big issues in 2024, how they impact each generation. That's the whole point of this show, is to talk about generational differences. We try to keep it work related, but we're equally willing to go off track and talk about societal issues too, and even get a little dangerous at times. And there's something that I'm going to bring up today that's a little
we'll give you if you have questions on stuff, we'll give you advice. It may not be the best advice, but it's free advice, so you get that from us. So,
and you do get what you pay for. We know
exactly.
That. Oh, we do have we do have quite a bit of experience as staffing professionals. That's what we do. We have 2 companies really that we spend a lot of time talking about. One is Four Corner Resources, a staffing business, and then ZenGig, which is our new brand, which is a career advice brand that's been we launched about 1.5 years ago. So we end up talking about a whole lot of different things, and again, trying to hear different perspectives by generation. So I'm not a boomer, but if we have any boomers watching today, we'd love to hear your perspective too. So let's get that going. Where are we going to start first? Now, actually, we had a cliffhanger last week with a video we didn't show. Should we wait, or should we get right into it?
I think we should get right into it. It's going to basically, I don't know if I want to spoil it. I say go ahead and show it.
All right. Well, thanks. We did get our first comment, so thank you for that before we get into it. Congratulations on your PhD. That's a great accomplishment. So If you have anything you want to hear us talking about today, let us know. We really are continuing our episode last week of big issues in 2024. The job market right now, a little crazy, Ashley. So let's go with this video. Are you going to run it?
You might hear this sound. Do you have the link on your end, Pete, for that one?
I do. You want me to put it up?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys are going to have to fill. Is this one about grads making more than their parents, or is that a different one?
No, this one should be about 2024, kind of something we're going to see.
Okay. All right. Well, y'all have to fill some space in. I don't know if you sent it to me.
It's in Slack. The Gen X can't find it.
To turn off the noise outside so we can play videos.
I'm seeing every video but that right now. So
in Slack, you're looking at Slack?
I'll look in Slack. So what before we do that, while I'm looking for that, since we clearly did not plan this very well, inflation numbers came out today.
Yep. Big
increase in inflation. We thought that things were getting better. A lot of people did, but it seems pretty clear that they're not. So inflation numbers came in higher than expected. And here's some staggering numbers. Car insurance inflation. What would you guess that is if for this month? Where did it come in?
You mean percentage it increased from last month?
Year over year.
70.
Annual rate of increase.
I'm going to say 30%.
20.3%. So Peter, you're the winner with that. You're closer.
I mean, it's high for sure. Mine's not as bad, nearly as bad. I've talked to some people, and yeah, mine's not as bad as some people's, but yeah, I've seen that one is one that's definitely going up a good amount.
So transportation up 10%, rent up 6.5%, homeowner inflation up 6.3%, hospital services up 5.5%.
Not here in Florida.
How do you think? Which generation do you think is impacted most by these inflation numbers right now?
I say Gen Z, just because we're just starting. We're fresh out of college. We're just starting to get a salary. We're looking for a place to live. Some of us are even finding second jobs just to get by. So I feel like Gen Z and maybe even millennials.
I would say it depends on the type of insurance. Like if you're talking homeowners insurance, it's going to be probably Gen X, I would say, is probably the most affected. Gen Boomer, a lot of the baby boomers, some of them have their houses already paid off, so maybe they don't have to worry about it as much. So they can choose, I guess, forego it. But I think Gen X is probably of the three of us the most, followed by millennials and Gen Z just by age.
I can tell you for the past few years, my homeowners rate goes up, or my insurance rate for homeowners insurance goes up a ridiculous amount every time it renews. I mean,
we're in Florida though, so we're like even worse than like literally everywhere.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I don't know which. I think every generation is impacted in a different way for sure, like Peter just pointed out, but equally, it affects anyone who's close to the line. I mean, that's where I think about, and retirees. I think about that a lot. Now, that's really not the focus of this show, but if you think about all the people on a fixed income who are no longer earning anything beyond what they have in their retirement plans, it's a big problem. So we're not seeing anything in those numbers that, unfortunately, I see will kick the job market back into high gear with a lot of hiring taking place. I think companies will continue to hold off, and maybe that's going to take longer for interest rates to decline. So that's it wasn't good news this morning, you guys.
Yeah, it's weird though, because there was a Reuters article that was talking about how the inflation was slowing. They actually expected it to go higher. So I don't know. I guess I've heard conflicting stories on that. I do think it's going to cause people to be more cautious. There's not going to be as much job hopping. There's not going to be as much people changing jobs. I think that'll probably cause employers to have to focus on who they have, because it's going to be harder to fill jobs if someone does leave. So that's something I think that's going to need to be considered.
Great point. No doubt about that. So Ashley, this is your famous video, right? Is this the right one?
Yes.
Finally found it. All right, I'm going to hit play. Tell me quickly video. If it doesn't. I have no idea. I still didn't watch it. I was part of the cliffhanger. Peter, did you watch it yet?
I have watched it, and yeah, I've seen this come around. I guess it's a pretty popular video on TikTok. So
okay, yeah. I mean, lots of likes. So we'll see what happens. All right, tell me if you don't hear the sound.
Morning. Bad news. As of 2024, millennials and Gen Zers have less money than any other generation at any other point in U.S. history. A new report shows that 3 out of 4 millennials and 3 out of 5 Gen Zers are living paycheck to paycheck while saving almost nothing, with no economic ability to buy a house or start a family or even cover a minor medical emergency.
Come on, pal. Tell me something I don't know.
That's because over the past 2 years, corporations have created hyperinflation on top of pandemic inflation through blatant price gouging to generate record-breaking profits, which are subsidized by historically low real wages, because since the Reagan administration, baby boomers have been leveraging their children's financial futures to make themselves extremely wealthy and create an economic system with the singular goal of increasing corporate profits at the expense of paying workers a living wage, thus ending the possibility of middle-class mobility, which is why you can't afford a place to live, food to eat, gas in your car, or seeing a doctor, because if you were to have more money to improve your life, corporations couldn't use it for executive bonuses, stock buybacks, insider trading, or political lobbying. And they're the ones who get to decide what the extra money that you earned for them is spent on.
All right, so we get the point.
Yep.
Not that was pretty anti-corporation, anti-company. That is a sentiment that I've seen grow, on social media over the last, I'll say, 10 to 15 years, where it's not just a lack of loyalty, because I don't think loyalty is necessary. I don't think it's necessary on either side. It's, when it comes to employment. But I do think respect, trust, just general decency, that has to be in place. But Ashley, I don't think your generation, and Peter, maybe even millennials, don't trust the companies they work for. I mean, it's almost like they're seen as the enemy.
I mean,
yeah.
There's like another YouTube, TikTok video where like people are complaining about how because of inflation right now, companies are even cutting benefit costs. So it's like they're doing these things and it's not like appealing to their eye when it comes to corporations.
It's difficult when I would say, yeah, I generally agree. It's interesting whenever you see like corporations aren't just a group of people. It's easy, I guess, to categorize them as like a singular, like they. But I mean, it is hard. Something they said on there that, there are companies publishing record stakeholder profits since COVID that are not publishing record wage. The wages have not kept up with the profit amount. And that is not an opinion. That is an actual verifiable fact. So it's hard to not be disenfranchised when you're, I guess, millennials and younger, because they haven't seen the same levels of, I guess, loyalty or generosity from their companies as the previous generations have had. And you could say that, well, the company's job is to report to the stakeholders, but that has not always been the case. And that has not always been the mindset of the general population, but it has been pretty much the entirety of millennials' life since the early 80s.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you think, or anyone listening, please chime in on this. Some days we get lots of comments. Some days it's quiet. It's quiet so far today. So, please jump in. Here's a question. Do you think that employees should depend on their employer for anything beyond the job that they're in that moment? Should they rely on their employer for anything beyond today?
I think that you're going to say, I know that it's a transactional relationship, and that I do agree, but it is hard to when you look back on previous generations, things like pensions, those don't exist anymore. Whereas private companies used to have pensions. That was a common thing. That was something that most people relied on as part of their retirement. I don't think there are any companies that I know of right now that have a good pension program. So the role of company has changed in society and with people's mindsets, that there isn't anything that they should owe to each other. I guess I think that it should be a transactional relationship. If that's going to be the mindset, then yes, it should be. And that's where the employer, I guess, loyalty comes in. Like, people don't have it because it's I'm only here as long as you pay me.
So Joseph chimed in. Now I've been connected to Joseph on LinkedIn for a couple of months now, and I appreciate his comments and his perspective on things. He brings a lot of humor to LinkedIn, which is great. But said only if they want to be disappointed. So expound on that a little bit, right? Employers, employees are going to be disappointed if they rely on their employers, if they depend on them, and that word is one I use a lot, this dependency, which I don't think existed when I was coming out of school. I didn't have any expectation. Pensions were already gone by then. That wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
No one my age was expecting that. But we also didn't expect more than just the job, right? We didn't expect the employers to get involved in our emotional well-being, our social issues, societal issues. That just wasn't a thing. And now that is extremely prevalent. I don't know why. I think it's problematic personally. I think there should be a separation of church and state, so to speak, but it's become prevalent. And
do you not think that that's like a little bit hypocritical then for the employers to then bemoan like nobody wants to have job loyalty or job hopping. Nobody wants to work anymore. Okay, but you are the ones who want it that way. Like you don't want to take care of your workers. Don't be surprised when they don't care about you.
I don't know where that it's interesting. No one, you hear that reference to nobody wants to work anymore, but there's never any idea who's actually saying it. I only hear people claiming that others are saying it. I don't know. Okay, first of all, let me go on record and say, I don't want to work ever. I'd prefer not to work a day in my life going forward. I never have wanted to. I work because I need to. I think that applies to everyone.
It's like old, like the only people that I've encountered that have actually said that non-ironically have been like retired baby boomers. So that's in my mind, I guess, who's saying it, only because of my personal anecdotal experience.
So it's a matter of expectations is really what we're talking about with this. And expectations over the years have shifted. Now, we have a very opposing perspectives on this right now, and it's almost a split between the growing freelance market, of which I'm a huge fan. Mm-hmm. Kate just asked a question: how can a manager be a good manager if work is always treated as I think you meant transaction? Yeah. Well, some of my most healthy relationships I've ever had in my professional career are those with freelancers. They don't expect anything more of me than to be respectful, to be likable. If they don't like me, they won't continue to work with me. Honest, consistent, all the things you just expect in any human relationship that's going to last and be a successful one. And I don't expect anything more of them other than to do what they commit to, right? At the best skill level that they can. So I'm not their manager. And maybe that's why it's healthy, because they don't look to me for comfort in other ways. They don't look for my opinion on social issues, right? I'm trading what I'm willing to pay for their labor and skill, and vice versa. And that is the nature of the relationship. And I contend that you can have no more healthy relationship than that.
I think that, the key there is expectation. Like, that they're trying to make money. You're trying to get something done. So while it is transactional, I think that clarity is nice. Where whenever we talk, by the way, about people's loyalty and everything, I feel like there's a difference between what you're describing is a smaller, like one-on-one, interaction. That's easy. That's great. Whenever it's a huge company, the people who I see disenfranchised, they got laid off by large faceless corporation of 18 layers of managers who no one, knows the next person up. That's where I guess it gets a little muddy, and that's just the nature of large groupings. I think that on a person-to-person basis, transactional works really well. So.
And I think you're right. I don't know that this scales, right? I mean, 10 years ago, everyone, quote, wanted to be like Google, right? Ball pits at work, places to take naps. That was great until Google decides on a whim. That wasn't on a whim. They made a financial decision to whack a couple thousand employees at once. Suddenly,
the person who made that decision is so far removed from their they're 7 layers up. Their decision that they sign off on paper is not actually they don't know the thousands of people that they're just a number. And I think that's what you're getting at.
So but the split is fascinating to me, right? Because on one side we have this increased dependency where employees are demanding things of their employer that they wouldn't have 20 years ago. On the other side, we do have the growing freelance market. So how do you reconcile that? Because I mean, is it just different preferences, and folks who like structure and crave that dependency are going to go in one direction, and those who are autonomous and want freedom and flexibility will go in the other?
I definitely think it depends on like the type of person, especially from what I see on TikTok. Everyone that's like, oh, I don't want to work 5 to 9 anymore. I don't want to work for corporations. I want to be my own boss. Basically, they're like, I'm going to become a freelancer. Like, this is how I become this. Whereas other people are like, no, like they like the 9 to 5. They like the structure. They like how people are telling them what to do versus them figuring it out on their own.
I mean, that's people in general. That's same reason some people are good at remote, so others aren't good at remote. How you discipline yourself, how you function best. I mean, I 100% agree that there are people who are like, nope, I need structure. I need external structure specifically. I need layers of people telling me what I can and can't do. And there are other people who are like, that is suffocating to me. I got to be able to do things, kind of all over the place. And maybe it's chaotic to some, but they thrive in that environment. So yeah, that's totally makes sense to me.
And I think most are kind of doing both now to just get by through inflation. There was a statistic last year from a TikTok I have like over here that said 70% of workers were looking for extra work due to inflation. So they were either freelancing on the side or doing like Uber Eats on the side.
All about that side hustle, man.
I can't tell you how many people I know have full-time jobs, and then at the end of the day or on the weekends, they're also just side hustling because of inflation.
Because they want to, or because they have to?
Because they have to.
They have to. So why wouldn't they make a change in a significant way? Do they feel like there's no opportunities to apply their skill and what they want to do and be able to receive the compensation that will allow them to live a better lifestyle? Or what? Why do you think? Or that they feel trapped?
I'd say it could be either their college degree, it could be the jobs out there, it could be, maybe their job. Anywhere you look, it's kind of the same salary. Like, let's just say everyone's making 50,000 if they go work. Like, it's all the same numbers from what I'm seeing on LinkedIn, especially for people fresh out of college. You don't see someone starting at 60K. They're starting at like 40,000 and like 55.
Do you think it's possible? All right, so this may be unpopular, but do you think it's possible that young people, their expectations are too high coming out of the gate? That where my expectations were super low, right? I was poor for a long time, and I knew that I had to work my way out of that hole. Now that maybe you could say, well, you shouldn't have to, but that was life. That was the deal. All of my friends in our early 20s, we were broke. We had no money. We didn't live in nice places. I look at apartments that are being built now. These things are lavish, and these are starter apartments. I lived in a dump, and I wasn't complaining. And I'm not saying that was the right situation. I'm saying I didn't think the world owed me anything. I thought I had to go earn whatever I had, and I hadn't earned it yet.
I think we're just like, my generation is looking for more because of inflation. Like, we want to move out of our parents' house. To do that, we want a job that will pay us more. We want to buy a nice car. To do that, we need.
Okay, but here's the thing. My daughter, who maybe she's listening now. She's 24 now. Mm-hmm. Her first apartment out of school was nicer than up until anything I lived in until I was 40, probably. And that wasn't, and like no one was raising their eyebrow at it. I mean, the amenities at this place. And yes, was it a high rent? Of course it was, because it was a Shangri-La. I mean, this place was incredibly nice. So that's what I look at. And this is where the Gen X, old guy in me starts to come out, where I go, okay, if we expect too much too soon, we're going to be disappointed with what we don't have. I didn't have those expectations. I don't think many people my age had those expectations. So we saw it as a harder route and longer route to success. And I think Gen Z sees it today. Peter, where do you land with that?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. Like I lived in basically, I for lack of a better word, I lived in squalor. Like my first, it was a house that I rented with 5 other guys, and it was like not a great house in not a great area of town. So, and I lived in basically the converted garage. So I am very familiar with, and I was right out of school. I'm familiar with the struggle, so to speak. But at the same time, some of the even, you know, my next apartment, which was not a glamorous, nice apartment by any means, that same apartment, because I live in Orlando still, I know, like, I looked it up the other day, and it's like for the same apartment that I lived in, like $900 more a month than I paid back in, you know, 2012 or something like that. So I totally agree that like prices are up. So people expect a little bit more. And I think the advent of social media has shown like you can kind of compare with and contrast with your peers. And so maybe it makes it so that Gen Z is less likely to put up with stuff that you know, Pete, when you were starting out, probably you put up with stuff because you're like, you don't know any better. So you're like, I guess I'm just going to deal with it.
Well, but when you say put up with it, you imply that you're owed something. Owed by who? Right? Everyone has the same opportunity. And if you don't like the situation you're in, change it. And you guys know this. I wrote a blog a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago now, probably about, you know, equating a career to a college football player's evolution of your freshman year is your 20s. And no one expects much from a freshman college football player. There's anomalies that hit the field early and are stars, but you have a really long runway to ramp up. And so what I tell my kids, and yeah, I'm not looking for parenting advice on this. If you disagree, that's great, is take as much time as you need to end up where you want to go, but don't expect success early, because success that happens early is usually fleeting. And any meaningful success that I know of, that I've experienced, has taken consistency of effort over time. And I don't mean measured in a couple weeks or months. I mean a lot of times. So when you say they won't settle for it, so, like, who owes anyone anything?
I mean, yeah, I agree with that. And I'm totally in the mindset that like starting off and having things harder makes it like it sucks, you know, but it makes you appreciate it better more later on. I do think that like there's like some of the jobs that I look back on that I worked like in my early career, there was stuff that I was like, man, I should have just like gone to another place and like not had to deal with that. Like, you know, the things that come to my mind most right now is like I would have managers who they were bad at their job, I recognize now, and they would not do the schedule right or something, and they would last minute basically make me have to deal with their problems, and I would just put up with it and be like, all right, sure, I'll change my schedule around, I'll come in, I'll fix this, I'll solve your problem, because realistically it was they screwed up and they just pushed it down to me and I just dealt with it. And that's the kind of thing I think like maybe nowadays a Gen Z person coming in, they would probably be like, hey, you know, this is your problem. I'm not going to fix your problem for you. And maybe that's, I guess, what I'm getting at. I don't necessarily think that, you know, everything should be handed to people.
So,
right off
the bat. I'm always reminded of the talk that I heard by this guy named Darren Lynn Bozeman. If you're familiar with the Saw franchise of movies, he directed a number of the Saw movies. And I was at Full Sail University where he went to school. He was given a Lifetime Achievement Award, or made their Hall of Fame, I guess is what it was. And he read his speech. He talked about how he was basically, I don't want to put, I'm paraphrasing, was sweeping floors in LA trying to make it. And he had been doing it for years. He'd been grinding, and his dad wrote him a letter, I think when he turned 30, saying essentially, hey man, it's time to give it up. Right. And he had that letter and he showed it. And I don't remember exactly what it said, but the point was this guy was committed to achieving something that most weren't willing to work for. And it didn't happen quickly. He was grinding it out for years. And I love that story. You know, it's no different than why I love Mr. Beast. Yes, he's a YouTuber, but he's a YouTuber that worked 24/7 for 10 years. And anytime I hear anyone complain about what they don't have, I look at the first question I have is, what are you willing to do about it? Mm-hmm. Right? What are you willing to do? If you're 24 and you don't like your income level, the world doesn't owe you anything differently. You have to earn it. And you have that opportunity if, and this is a big one, and no one likes this part of the story, if you're willing to work 24/7 to get it. Because the reward on the other side of that effort, whether it takes a couple years or a decade, is going to be well worth it. And so maybe I I don't know if my perspective is seen as flawed by you guys, but I know I can complain about something or I can do something about it. And I've always been of the mindset that let me do something about it, even if it's not going to happen quickly.
I think it's generally good. I think it's maybe a little bit overly simplistic that there's not other factors that, sure, that works well if you're 24. If you're 34 and you have a kid and you're married, it's not as easy to just be like, well, let me just go back to school and not have any money for a year or 2 years or however long and move my life to the other side of the country. Like, that's not easy. And that requires a lot of money and planning and stuff like that.
Well, again, I mean, look at the history of human evolution. When did it get easy?
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that's like right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just gonna say like that. There's a lot of things to take into account. Is like, if you don't like your, and if you don't, like your job, just go do a completely different job in a completely different place. Like that's bad advice to just assume that like, oh well, everybody can just do that. Like it does require planning. Yet you can do it, but it requires a lot of planning and logistical work.
And this is why as I say often, the bottom of every profession is really crowded.
Yes,
because it's hard. It's hard to come home after work and say, now I'm going to study and do something else. When I decided to quit my job to start a business, I couldn't do that. I couldn't take a second job. I couldn't do it on the side. It just wasn't in me for whatever reason. So I had to basically, no one owed me anything if this failed, obviously. But my wife was pregnant with our third child, and I said, "Here's the deal: we're going to have to go backwards to go forward."
Yep.
But it's an itch I have to scratch, and I have to do it. And she's like, "All right, I don't love it, but I love you, and so rock and roll." So I've been through that, and I know that it's not easy. Of course, it's not. I was making a lot of money in the role that I went, and I went to making no money overnight. Yeah. And that was not an easy decision to make. And it's not for everyone, that's for sure. But I think situations can change if the person in the situation is willing to do whatever it takes. Right. That's all I'm talking about.
I think that's true. I guess to get sort of back to where we were going on is
we've got a lot of comments. You want to get to some of those?
Yeah, we can get to some of those.
All right. So I don't know that we want to touch. Wow, this is a lot.
Yeah.
I see DEI. I can't read that much. Well, that's going to be a lot of dead air that we don't want. So I'll just say quickly, do you think DEI is the pendulum swinging the other way? That was such a big thing, has been such a big thing over the last couple of years. There's been some backlash over the past couple of weeks. If anyone's paid attention to what's happening with the president of Harvard, Elon Musk has jumped all over it. Bill Ackerman on Twitter. I mean, if you're not on Twitter, you may not see as much of it. I don't know how widely reported it is in the news, but it seems like that pendulum is starting to swing the other way a little bit.
I'll be honest, I have not been kind of keeping up with it. So what's going on? Like, what's happening with
Peter? I'll let you answer
saying,
that.
I mean, it's not like a one time that yes, he's talking about the catalyst of the president of Harvard resigning. Elon, Ackerman was originally the one who made the comment, and then Elon kind of chimed in, and then what's his name? Mark Cuban. He kind of chimed in the other direction on that. Basically saying that, it's morally wrong, and it's not, a good idea to put a specific effort in to focus on DEI. That's what from my readings of it and from what I've heard, that's what it basically boils down to is it kind of spiked in the years following 2020, and it's kind of gone the other way because companies have died off. They put a bunch of money into it. You kind of get to the part where people are like, well, there's this entire department of it, yet nothing has actually changed. So what do you do here?
So what I'm seeing here, Gen Z and Alpha are the largest and most diverse ever. It will rely on DEI initiatives. That's not going to go away.
By the way, I think millennials are bigger than Gen Z. So just in terms of actually, like,
I don't know who can check that math. We need a show producer.
I thought I had heard. Yeah, we need a producer to check our things. But I had heard that millennials were the biggest generation. So
I don't know. Let's not go down that rabbit hole too much right now, because that's its own show, right? It's its own episode. But I will say this. So I'll go on record and say, I think the pendulum is going to swing more away from it in the months to come throughout the year, which is the opposite of what I would have predicted, a few months back. So it seemed like that momentum was growing, and this happens a lot. Then something happens, it gets public. Certain people get involved who are powerful and have a big audience and voice, and then it's like the door is cracked, and then the flood starts to happen. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I don't think the momentum is going to continue in that direction as it has been. Do you guys agree or disagree?
I agree. I did actually a little bit of just quick like statistics of it, and the reason that I think it's going to kind of go away is because it seems like it was largely performative, that people went into it, because the companies statistically, I was looking at, there was a Wall Street Journal article, the companies that have these departments, it's now been several years since they've done it, and they aren't hiring a more diverse workforce at any higher of a rate than the companies that don't have it. So basically it's sort of going in that direction anyway, because as she pointed out, that the generations are becoming more diverse. So naturally the workforce is becoming more diverse. So companies are spending money on these departments that aren't really doing anything extra than would already happen over time anyway. That's, I guess, how I see it. So it's going away. It's going away.
That makes sense.
All right, Ashley, you want to chime in or let it go? Let it pass. Doesn't seem like you've been thinking about it much.
I mean, I agree with Peter. Everything he said makes sense. I could see it going away from everything he just said. So I guess.
And I do agree with the comments also that it's become a political thing too. So companies are just going to kind of distance themselves anyway.
So that's really the question. That's where I find it interesting.
It's taking focus away from what it was supposed to be anyway, which is to make a better workforce because people have different ideas.
Well, how should employers be involved in political issues? That's something we've talked about before. Katie kind of makes reference to that here, which I appreciate. But I'll say this, Peter, I don't want to put your words in your mouth, so you can disagree, and maybe you say things about me behind my back that I'm unaware of. But notwithstanding, we have very different views on a lot of political issues, a lot of social issues. And how long have we worked together now? Closely every day.
It'll be 10 years. Well, no, it'll be 9 years in like a couple months.
So a long time, and it has never bothered either of us, to the best of my knowledge. And sometimes we talk about social things and disagree, and I wouldn't say argue, but we debate. But if you wanted my political views, if you demanded that my political views align with yours, we couldn't work together. And to me, that is ludicrous. I mean, that is insane. Like, when did that happen? And so is that going to continue? Where, again, not my generation, you guys have put that pressure on your employers to have their political views. As an organization, like a company, like Four Corner Resources has no political stance whatsoever. We're a staffing company, right? I would argue other companies who take very strong political stances have no business doing that either. What do you guys think?
I think that, I don't think it's going to continue. I mean, it's going to grow a little bit, and I think companies will probably like shift to accommodate, but I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to like completely change the company structure. And I think that the ones who really who are like, I will absolutely not work with X, like that's going to be probably the minority of people, because most people are frankly in the middle. They are what's considered a moderate, in the political terms. Like, most people don't have crazy, like very strong views about all of the issues to push them to one side or the other. So most people are going to gravitate towards some and maybe gravitate away from others, but I don't think it's going to be like a make or break for every single person.
I feel like social media will definitely influence whether it's going to get worse or not, depending if people are talking about it.
And it's, as the job market shifts, companies are going. I mean, if there's a demand, if you need 10 people to do X role, and the only 10 people are ones who want it, that's going to shift that way anyway. So
that's an interesting point, and I think that has not. So the job market of 2 years ago was fully all about the employees, right? They had all the power. We know that. And these demands were possible when when the imbalance exists like that. And I don't think that served Gen Z well, because now you think that's the norm and that's acceptable, and that you can rally against your employer and say, we expect you to take this political stance. When again, most people are like Peter said, most people are pretty neutral and watch what happens on social media and all the craziness in the world. And regardless of which side it is, think it's kind of hard to believe what we're witnessing in a lot of cases. But now that that pendulum has shifted, now it's not an employee's market like it was, despite what you see. And the media tries to report that it is not. We know that. Yeah, anyone in the recruiting space knows that to be definitively the
well,
case.
Come back around it like anything. I mean, as baby boomers retire, it'll eventually come to a point where there's going to be employees have more of a say. But
I worry about Gen Z, that my 4 kids are Gen Z, right? A lot of our employees are Gen Z. I care very much about that generation and its success. We need Gen Z to be successful. That you've been set up to believe that you have more power and strength and voting that you do in certain areas that you probably don't really have. Work from home being one of them, right? I mean, suddenly what had been the norm forever, now whether it should be or not is different, but companies, if they decide they didn't send you home because they wanted to. They sent everyone home because they had to. And so to come back in the office is the natural course of things, right? And so look at how many people won't do that. Refuse. I got a taste of this other way to do it, and now I'm unwilling to go back. I want my employer to have the same political alignment that I do and take a public stance. That's great, but that's really limiting. And I'm worried about how that's ultimately going to end up for a lot of Gen Zers who think that it's just, you're really limiting your opportunities when you have that perspective.
Yeah, you definitely need to be flexible. The person who is inflexible is going to be worse off. You're like inadvertently making like an argument for like collective bargaining, right, Pete? Like if you yourself are not really that valuable unless you can get other people to also do it. But as long as there's someone who is willing to go into the office and take that job, your stance isn't really going. But if everybody is like makes those demands, then you have a little bit more power there. Unfortunately, or fortunately for the employers, I think that there are people who don't care about that. And I'm using remote, being obviously facetious here, but there are people who are like, I'll go in the office, I'll take that job. And that person's going to benefit versus the person who takes a hard line and is like, I absolutely won't,
I'll say advice for Gen Z, especially those that are job searching right now. Don't limit yourself. Definitely go look for jobs, even if they're in office, because you might be missing out on great benefits, great pay, awesome workplace culture. Like I have a friend who was just like, I'm going to work from home. She ended up working in an office and she loves it. So just, I don't know, don't keep your eye on just work from home.
We've talked about that before. Your value inverse to like, if you're the only person in the country you can do this, you can make a lot of demands. If you're an entry level person and there's 1,000 of you, you can't make a lot of demands.
It's a head scratcher to me that that's not resonating with all the people frustrated that there's 1,000 applicants to a LinkedIn post within a couple of minutes. It's the ones that they're the jobs that everyone else wants. It is supply and demand. That is all. That is what it is. And that sounds harsh. It sounds impersonal. Well, it is business at the end of the day.
I don't know any person that I guess you have to be delusional to realize that if there's 100 people who want the same job, then they can be picky. If there's 100 girls who want to date the same guy, the guy can be picky. I don't know. It's like not complicated. It works the same way in everything.
Yeah, Lionel Messi can demand more money than anyone else because he can do what no one else can do. It is that simple. It's no more complex than that. And so if you don't have a rare skill set because you haven't taken the time to hone it, and I'm not talking about going to college either, as you guys well know. I think there's a lot of different ways today, and I am so envious of the options that you guys have. You could have what amounts to a master's or even a doctorate level education on YouTube if you want to. I mean, that is just saying that out loud to me is amazing that the world now presents those opportunities. and you can do it from anywhere you want, right? I mean, if I'm a young person right now, I'm packing my bags and hitting Europe, and I'm going to invest time and effort in learning a skill that no one else has, and trade knowledge and education and teaching myself. I mean, I say that, I don't know if I really would have, but what a cool thing to be able to do. And that didn't exist even 10 years ago. So the world has never been better for opportunities, but you got to be willing to get up and do it.
It requires discipline. I mean, it's not it's not easy to make yourself watch, take online classes, especially if nobody's doing it. That's why a lot of people choose to go to school, because they're like, I need a professor to at least grade my stuff to make me have to do things. I mean, I know I would be that way. I'm like, if as long as somebody is at least I have a deadline, then I can work backwards off that. But yeah, the access to education and skills is insane right now. So
do you think that's because in that scenario you just mentioned, you don't have something that you've deemed worthy of your best effort, right? Because if it's, hey, I need you to go study this geography and then take a test on it, and you're not interested in geography, sure, that's going to take structure and forced effort. But if it's something that you wake up every morning and you're genuinely excited to do, not because anyone makes you do it, not because you're earning income, because you genuinely want to, doesn't it all fall into place then?
Yes, but I think even with something that you're super passionate about, you're going to get burnt out on it if you're doing it every day. If you're taking a class and say it's going to take you a year, and you got to go online and you got to do 2 hours worth of classes every day for a year, even if you think it's the most amazing thing in the world, you're going to slack off at a certain point. It's human nature. You can't focus that long for that without having something to keep you accountable. And some people set that up on their own, but others want external forces.
I'd say, like, my friend right now, she has her full-time job, but she's also taking classes to become like a writer. Mm-hmm. She loves writing. She's starting to become like kind of burnt out about it because she has to like do so much. Like, it's just not as enjoyable as like it used to be for her.
I don't think it would go away, by the way. I know this from friends who've done it but it is, you can slip, and it's hard to just motivate yourself. It is a rare person that can entirely motivate themselves with nothing else and just stick to it with unwavering concentration for a long period of time. You might do it and then come back to it, but whatever works for you. The people I know that do best, by the way, in school, in college, are the people who have gone back to school, that have chosen, and they're like, hey, I didn't take my, I know actually a couple who went to school, kind of got just a general studies, AI or whatever, worked. And then they're like, I know now in my late 20s or early 30s what I want to do. I'm going back. And because I choose it, they are a lot more dedicated. They are probably the best students who get way better grades than they did when they were in their early 20s.
I'm surprised you just said what you did about if you had to do something for 2 hours a day, every day for a year. You said that as if that's a lot. And when I hear that, I go, that's nothing, right? When I graduated from college, I was a slacker when it came to school. I did bare minimum. I had a bad GPA, a poli-sci degree. I did lots of extracurriculars, but as a student, I was awful because I wasn't interested in the subject. And I thought going to class was hard. I was like, how do I get to 15 hours a week? That seemed like a lot. Then I started working for Aerotech right out of school, and I worked 70 hours every single week. No ifs, ands, or buts. And anyone who worked for Aerotech back then knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then I would look back. It took me a month of that to go, I had no idea how good I had it. What a waste that I had this opportunity to learn. And I've thought that every day since, pretty much, that what a gift to be able to go to school and learn and not have anything else to worry about. And not everyone gets that gift, but it's a gift that's wasted more often than not because it's being used on the wrong people. And to your point, go get some life experience and have a basis for knowing what you're interested in. And
I guess what I was saying that, by the way, I wasn't talking about like 2 hours in general. I was talking about 2 hours after work. Say you worked all day and you're like going to spend 2 hours every night.
Okay.
That's
but how many students, I mean, this is a complete, we have no basis for answering this. But what percentage of students you think who go to school? I mean, almost everyone most college grads, the vast majority do go right out of high school, at least in the US. What percentage you think is going to study something that they are genuinely interested in, that they have high aptitude in, and that the world will value, right? That one is a big one. Like, how many fall into that category?
Be a minority of people that have a true drive for their specific thing. Anecdotally, the people I know, like they're like, yeah, it's fine, it's good job. I don't know too many that are like, this is it. Like, I'm super into this specific thing. I do know people that are like that, and even those people like are sometimes like, I don't like this aspect of it, but they're generally like, I'm in this because I choose to, not because I have to, which makes you I feel like more motivated.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my sister, she went into school, she was like, I want to be a nurse. Even like high school, she was like, I want to be a nurse. That was just something she's just always seen herself doing. She went to nursing school, and there are days where she's like, oh, like today was hard, and like sometimes I wish I could have been like something else. But then when it's good days, she's like, I love nursing. Like, I'm glad I chose this profession. So it's like, I feel like deep down, like, okay, this is making me happy. But on the bad days, you kind of just feel discouraged and you start second guessing yourself. And you're like, is this really what I want to do?
How many people your age, when you were in school, because you're the most recent by far, what would you say percentage-wise knew what they were going to do? They were getting a degree that they could then turn into a profession that they wanted to do. And I'll again say that the world places value on.
Honestly, I'd say it's a really low percentage. Like, I'd maybe say like 20%. Like, I can't tell you how many people I knew in college just constantly were changing their majors. Like, me included. Me included. And I just remember, like, even my own professor, like when I was an education major, I remember we were all sitting in class. There was a ton of us. He goes, I bet you next year or like next semester, like it's just going to be less of you each time until senior year, because everyone's going to end up changing their major and being like, I don't want to be a teacher. Like, this is not for me. So the number just like shrinks and everyone just keeps changing their mind. And then they graduate and they're like, was this the right choice? Did I make the right choice changing my major, and second guessing themselves? I feel like they just don't have guidance with this. And like you said, I feel like if they go get that real life experience first, maybe that would have changed things. Like, I know I wish I got real life experience first before going into all these changes that I had in college.
It's crazy that an 18-year-old is expected to be like, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Go.
It's tough. It's tough. Like, I just remember looking at my application and then major. Like, I just felt so much pressure. I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I also didn't want to go in there like just not knowing. Like, I didn't want to go in there with like just a blank response, like no major, just undeclared.
One of my high school senior son, he just applied to quite a few schools, and he said pre-law in one of them. It's something that he's thinking about doing, and it said great, actually University of Central Florida here in Orlando, where we are, and it said, great, pre-law, you're going to go to the downtown campus. And if you know Central Florida at all, the University of Central Florida campus is probably 20 miles away from downtown. And I saw it and I thought, what an entirely different experience you would have as a student doing that. And so if you were going to make that commitment, you better be really interested in it, because most people will say, and I have a lot of opinions on this I won't go into right now. I've been ranting for some reason. I don't know why. That you go for the college experience, right? Whatever that is.
Yeah.
And my first thought when I saw his application was, man, I hope that's not where he ends up, as much as I love UCF, because he doesn't know he wants to be an attorney. He thinks that today. He's 18 years old. He has no clue really. But what a different route that will send his life on. And so these decisions that 17 and 18-year-old kids make, to me, it's almost become an obsessive thought, because of my kids and their friends and everything we're doing for ZenGig, providing career advice for young people. I think the system's pretty broken. You guys agree?
I would recommend to myself, if I could talk to myself, I'd be like, hey, take a few years off, decide. I mean, my brother did that. My brother went to school, he got his AA. He ended up working as a paramedic for a few years. He moved to Poland, met his wife, got married, moved back, and he is currently in school now. He's 27, 28, and he actually chose his major. He's graduating. He actually just got a job as a forester on the other side of the country. And so he's going to be moving over there when he graduates in the spring. But he chose that, and he has like straight A's, and he was never like a straight A student because he's like, this is what I'm interested in. I'm going to do this, and I'm focused on this now.
I almost feel like I wish, like, getting out of college, they just put a test in front of me and just like a bunch of questions to just kind of pair me to something. And then I almost feel like instead of interning your junior and senior year, like, have kids like take just like a class where they're required to go intern their freshman year to go get their like footing, to see what it's like, to at least shadow, to just like make sure, like, okay, is this what I actually want to do? Is this the career path for me? Because I feel like in the end, if you're interning your senior or junior year and you're just like, like, this is terrible. Is this what it's going to be like? And I'm about to graduate. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's done all wrong.
Well, and who you were then is very different than who you became over the next couple of years. So Peter, with your brother going to Poland, which I think is just such a cool thing, how much did he change? How much did he learn? How much did he mature and evolve? I mean, clearly met his now wife over. I mean, what an amazing opportunity. And if he hadn't done that, how different the trajectory of his life would have been.
Well, he's got friends that still live back in our hometown, and I mean, some of them have done kind of cool stuff there, but they've never really left. And so, like, just him going out and doing that, and he discovered that he wanted to get a degree in forestry while he was over there because they had great forests and they have a really strong, program in that country. And that was where he was like, hey, I want to really do that over here. So yeah, it's kind of the same thing. I even look back on myself, like half the things that I could have done or that I do now, or that I wouldn't have thought of it at the time. Just there was nothing out there to be like, here's all these crazy options that you probably didn't even think of because nobody in your immediate life does these things. So how would you know?
Yeah, like let's take a test and pair something to your like likings and skills and hobbies and see if anything matches up. So that way you can go.
I was like, there's like 20 careers, right? I got to pick from one of these 20. Like, that's it. Like,
hey, maybe that could be a new Zen gig tool in the future. Like,
working on it.
Take an online test.
Stay tuned. But even then, I do struggle with it because how much you want to pigeonhole someone at 18 versus okay. Now, if you have that really strong feeling, and some do, your sister, for example, knew what she wanted to do. Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, like I talk to my kids about that all the time, and I reference them because they're of that age, between almost 16 and 24, where I want nothing more for them than to find something they're willing to go all in on, because that to me is the goal, and keep searching until you find it. So when I see these people, when I hear about the complaints, back to what we were talking about earlier, of people who are frustrated with where they are, not making enough money, it's because the world does not put enough value on what they can deliver. And that sounds like really crude to say, but there's back to the Messi comment. The world puts a really high value on what he can do on the soccer pitch, football pitch. If I'm going to say it right, I have to say it. And therefore they're willing to pay him for it. Mm-hmm. Great. You can kind of go to each profession and go, here's the people at the top, here's people in the middle, here's people at the bottom. And so it doesn't feel like work necessarily. It doesn't feel like a burden if you go, man, I want to be the best I can be at this and throw myself fully into it. And I just think we give up way too often on that dream before we actually pursue it. Right. I mean, Darren Lynn Bozeman, if he gave up at 25, he never would have directed Saw movies. What a crime that is to think about. And how many people never really try because the world doesn't tell them to. They doesn't encourage them to. They're like, go get a job. And you guys know I hate that phrase to young people. But that's the norm. Go to college, get a degree, get a job. Ugh. That's gross.
I think something that we're going to see a lot more with Gen Z. We're already seeing it with millennials. We're going to see a lot more with Gen Z. because there's this, there's tons of education out there, and because of like you can easily learn other skills, is people who are willing to pivot and have a second career. Maybe they did something in their 20s and they're like, this sucks, I hate it, I went to school for it, but whatever, I'm going to change and I'm going to do it completely. I, in my personal life, know so many people who've done that, who've either gone back to school or they've like pivoted their career into a completely like maybe adjacent thing. So they're like, I know a girl, she went to school for nursing and she's like, I'm burnt out on nursing. I do, she's a med surg floor nurse. And she's like, and she's basically moved her career into case management, I guess. And from that, she then went into it's called bioinformatics, and she's basically doing an IT job now. And she was a nurse before. So I think we're gonna see a lot more of that as people have access to that, and people being unafraid to have a different career and realizing like the guy who did Saw, like if you're, maybe you're in your 30s and you're like, all right, well, I can start over. I can do something else, or I can do something adjacent because it's so easy for me to learn another skill. So I think that's going to be something we see a lot more of, people pivoting or shifting.
Hope so. And I hope we see Gen Alpha do it a lot more without getting pigeonholed early. That's what I'm hopeful for. And I think that's happening. I really do. I think I keep seeing more, not just because we're paying attention to it with Zengig, but I just see a shift taking place where people are questioning the norm in the way we've, quote, always done it, and challenging that, which I think is awesome, because the world has evolved and shifted so much. It'd be crazy not to consider doing things vastly differently. It's not going to happen overnight, but I like the trend.
Yeah, and I think it brings a unique perspective to stuff when you've got outside experience or experience from a different industry, and you come into something like you think maybe differently than somebody who's done something for 20 years and has only done that specific job. So I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. We have all these videos we didn't show, so maybe let me propose this, you guys. Since our comments, I don't know if anyone's still with us at this point. We may have worn out our welcome today. Should we do videos next week? Just video.
We do a clip show.
I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah.
Ashley,
we can do a video one.
Let's do TikTok videos. Should we find our own, or Ashley, are you gonna gather them?
Let's find our own. Let's make it interesting.
All right.
All
we all have that. We all have homework.
We got some homework now. Yeah, everybody who joined us today and commented, we did read through them, and it's really great to see people that are actually watching us and thinking along about some of these. The people who agreed with me, thank you. I like you.
Everyone always agrees with you.
I'm an agreeable person.
Probably because they're all millennials too.
I'm just so reasonable. I don't know what you guys have against.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I don't know how you come on here and you're the agreeable one. Like that's like why that's when
you know me in my personal life. I'm not as agreeable.
Exactly. All right. Well, this has been fun, you guys. And like Peter said, thanks for everyone joining us. Ashley, hopefully next week you don't have a construction crew in your ear. That'll be
I'll be good. I'll be good. All right.
Well, thanks for hanging. This was fun. See you next week.
Right.
Bye, guys.